There are a lot of people out there, especially here in the West, that are not fans of gold. And that's largely due to the fact that they don't understand it. There's a lot of misconceptions about the metal, and we're going to set the record straight in this video as we talk about 7 lies about gold. And wait till you hear number 7, because it's a doozy that's going to blow your mind. So let's explore. Throughout history, gold has been treasured and valued by most of society and cultures since the civilized world became into being. But as time grew, gold became less and less part of our culture, especially with the advent of paper money. And the thing is people just don't see gold as money these days. We see this as money. But in reality, this is the true form of money. And most nation states understand this as they hold it in their central banks. But we're going to take a look at it and try to take a look at these misconceptions and try to set the record straight here. I'm going to be referencing a piece here from Guy Christopher, that's sent to me by a member of the community, that talks about the biggest lies that have been told about gold and believed to this day. In reality, they're misconceptions, and we're going to break them down here. And there's only one true measure of wealth, and that is gold, not government-issued debt. So the first big lie is that gold is a barbarous relic. We've heard that before. It's been repeated for decades. It's actually a misquote of the 20th century socialist economist John Maynard Keynes, who perpetuates a lie exploited as an almost biblical prophecy of gold's demise. What Keynes wrote in 1923 was that the gold standard is already a barbarous relic. In other words, the standard itself, not gold. Big spender Keynes was advocating legislation to demolish gold's restrictive power over government spending. While the classic gold standard, gold backing paper money, no longer officially exists, governments buy and sell gold around the clock. So it is bought and sold as money, but it's just not used as for transactions for commercial and private debts. But one thing we know for sure is that, when Nixon closed that gold window in 1971, that was really the death nail to the standard that we have known as the gold standard. But gold still is being used as money. The Bank of International Settlements back in April of 2019 labeled gold as a Tier 1 asset, an upgrade from a Tier 3, putting it equal to and on par with cash. Yes, and we know central banks hold foreign exchanges as well, foreign currency exchanges. So that is the fascinating thing about what's happening with central banks. They see it as money. We know it's money, which means it's not a relic. In fact, even the standard between central banks is gold for sure. So they hold it in reserves and have been building these reserves recently at record rates. And nation's economic prestige is still measured in part by the tonnage of gold it claims to possess. What's true, every individual holding gold has adopted his own personal gold standard. That's why you've heard me say, be your own central bank, hold gold. Yes, indeed. And they disagree that gold and the gold standard are barbarous relics. So the big lie number 2, and this one actually surprised me because it doesn't really pay dividends, but gold pays no interest, is the lie number 2. The silliest lie of all is meant to portray gold as lower class, essentially, to begin with. No wealth instrument pays interest until transferred to a counterparty. And that's the eye-opening thing about big lie number 2. Gold handed to a counterparty does pay, even though it's sometimes not called interest. There are such things as gold loans and gold leases, and they do pay a return, either in the form of a lease fee or interest, depending on the structure. What's true is your Federal Reserve note dollars do not pay interest at all until you give away your controlling possession of a counterparty. like putting your cash in a bank or loaning it to a relative. And the interest you're paid for taking such a risk has often been effectively zero. That's right, saving your money in a bank really doesn't pay hardly anything at all. It's only to put it into a money market, but you have to actually transfer it. So really they're saying the same thing for gold here. The interest in Federal Reserve notes is often negative, and that's essentially because of inflation. Typical interest rates pay lower than the currency debasement rate, and that's what's been happening here now. And of course, spot price of gold goes up. Well, you are essentially earning interest and maybe even a dividend. And we've seen gold perform very, very well over the last couple of years now, where it's flirting again with all-time highs. The big lie number 3 is that gold will be confiscated just as it was in 1933. I've heard this one a lot, even among gold bugs. It's just not the case. This is the lie most useful to the government because it has frightened so many away from gold. But even for stackers out there, too, they think it's going to happen again. The confiscation was a paid-for expropriation, which outlawed hoarding, not owning gold. In fact, you could have 5 gold coins in your possession, and you could have numismatic coins of any number. Franklin Roosevelt left millions in gold legally in American hands. His order was largely ignored anyway. FDR's aim was forcing Americans to recognize only fiat paper as money because he couldn't print gold for his government spending spree. President Gerald Ford reversed FDR's order in 1974. Today, this lie is most often perpetuated by peddlers of rare coins who try to confiscate the bulk of your investment via their rip-off prices in exchange for supposed protection from a future government seizure, which is unlikely to happen. So in other words, they kind of use scare tactics, and that is something that you should avoid at all costs. What's true is Washington has published plans to confiscate your cash in your bank accounts without notice. In fact, that is going to be something that could come down the line with the advent of a central bank digital currency. So be very, very careful about that, which is another argument to hold gold in your possession, because gold is so unlikely to be confiscated that you're much better having it in your possession. Yes, indeed. Now, the other big lie is a very controversial one, is that gold is not money. But we know it is. I've partially proven that earlier when we looked at a previous lie. History is littered with the carcasses of collapsed paper currencies. We've seen that time and time again. Right up to today, in nearly every instance, gold and silver stepped in to restore confidence as accepted and desired money. Wyoming, Arkansas, Utah, and Oklahoma have recently taken steps to declare gold and silver as legal tender. And other states, terrified of the Federal Reserve's money printing and Washington's reckless spending, are studying their examples and taking their own steps. And this is basically thanks to the sound money policy efforts that have been championed in some of these states. And this channel has been documenting a lot of those efforts as well. And I think I've covered it more than any other social media platform out there. And to pride myself in doing that, to bring you the latest news in terms of sound money efforts being created around the country, and I think hopefully maybe even around the world. But it doesn't take away from the historical significance and the fact that central banks do trade in gold between their nations. So what we know is true for sure is that gold and silver have been money for thousands of years, despite the Federal Reserve's dishonest gold is not money testimony to Congress that we've seen from time to time, most famously with Ron Paul and Ben Bernanke. The fifth big lie about gold is that gold is useless in a crisis because merchants cannot make change. Well, history shows us in every paper money collapse, barter systems always emerge. Gold and silver make perfect barter, accepted by most, including merchants, selling goods and services. And gold and silver are widely used, available in coins, rounds, and bars, which offers a variety of convenient sizes. And yes, even though gold, it's much likely that you're going to see gold in a fractional size that's really convenient, there are now RM notes, like the gold back, for instance, as one way to transact. That's already being done in some of these states like Utah and Nevada, as shown here, as a voluntary currency between a handful of businesses in those areas. Not so widely used yet, but it is a growing way to be able to transact actually using gold. But yes, silver coins are certainly a way to do it, but there are fractional sizes and ways to be able to transact specifically with gold in that way. So change can be made. And in a precipitous collapse of the Federal Reserve dollar, yesterday's price tags really won't matter, since prices won't mean much in dollar terms. Customers holding gold and silver will determine their metal's value and decide what change is to expect, not merchants. In fact, that will only hold case to be true in a collapse where we start to see really sort of an economic society form with gold and silver being transacted, which may have a different value in the New York area as it would in Wyoming or Hawaii, for instance. And so now, the sixth big lie about gold is that gold has no practical uses beyond adornment. Well, we know that gold is a very beautiful metal to look at for sure, and it's easy to dispel, but it often surprises readers and viewers here to learn practical uses that have not been found for gold back 3,000 years. We know that electronics, computers, cell phones, GPSs, medicine, dentistry, and space exploration join a long list of modern uses. Gold can be stretched into wire miles long or pounded into sheets thin enough to cover roofs, ceilings, buildings, and even James Webb's Space Telescope, if we're going to talk about that. Gold is an excellent electrical conductor, doesn't tarnish or corrode, reflects radioactive and ultraviolet rays, and even treats human cancers. And let's not forget that gold has been chosen by the market as money and as a useful tool of wealth. You know, silver is more versatile, hands down, and more utilized as a metal for all those uses I've mentioned before. But gold is too. It has a wide variety of uses, and it's an amazing metal for sure. We know that it's useful as a store of wealth, and gold's unmatched meaning to religious faiths, significant ceremonies, and personal relationships. And forget billionaire Warren Buffett's phony rant that gold is dug from one hole just to be buried in another. There's a whole lot more to it than that. And we know what has been said by Dave Ramsey about gold. And I just think these gentlemen just do not understand the metal when it's all said and done. What's true is gold has won its place as a symbol of wealth, value, faith, and endurance long, long ago. No question about that. Now we are here at the one that is quite a doozy, that I've found quite intriguing. I kind of knew some of this, but to the level of this is pretty amazing. And that is something that a lie that most gold bugs believe. Most people like me who believe in gold so much found this fact to be quite amazing, or this lie to be amazing, and that is that gold cannot be created in the lab. Alchemy does not exist, but in reality, it does. That's right. Now, olden day alchemists sought to please their kings by trying to turn lead and everything else into gold. Failed experiments often cost them their necks, literally. Gold has been created in nuclear laboratories. It has been synthesized in these labs using atomic particle accelerators, but at a cost about $10,000 per microscopic atom. That's right, for one atom of gold costs $10,000. Pretty amazing. The tiny gold, by the way, turned out to be radioactive, so it's not something you can just take in your hand and hold and be able to really enjoy, because you would get very sick and get radiation sickness from holding such gold. Pretty amazing, yes indeed. Crazy to think about. Wow. Radioactive gold. For more profitable, the laboratories of international banks regularly turn paper into gold by selling claims on physical gold through futures, options, and exchange-traded funds. Flooding the market with synthetic paper gold is a preferred method to depress the prices of gold and other metals like silver. That's a derivatives market, folks. What's true is the underworld lab experiment ends once banks can no longer deliver the metal they've sold. The current ratio of factory-made paper claims to real gold is over 100 to 1, meaning each ounce of bullion banks gold has been sold to 100 different buyers. So it's kind of crazy, but there you go. And that way they're trying to do it using paper. But nonetheless, gold can actually be synthesized. So I hope you enjoyed this video on the 7 biggest lies about gold. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. I hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. If you have, I hope you will consider sharing this video on other social media platforms like X or Twitter. And I will also want to encourage you, if you found value in the content I provide here, press that like button below and subscribe to the channel. So I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.